Hi everybody, welcome to this video. My name is Florence. In today's video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my art block and the things I have done to start painting again. So I practice watercolor as a hobby. I've been doing that for 2 years, and I initially started painting at home because I had a project in mind. I wanted to illustrate an oracle deck. So I think I have illustrated something like 100 or 150 pages before I could eventually have something that I liked to finish my project. And as I was painting more and more, I started getting interested in watercolor videos on YouTube, and I got interested in plein air painting and urban sketching. And in June, I joined a group of urban sketchers. And even if I was not always pleased with the results of my paintings, I spent good times with people, and it was a pleasant experience nonetheless. I even went to a national gathering of the urban sketchers in France, in Lyon, and I had a beautiful day in Lyon with other many fellow artists. So I painted this, and this. And then I thought, yeah, I'm going to illustrate my holiday, and this is what I did. So I did this and this. So even if the perspectives aren't really good, because I'm not very good at that, it doesn't really matter because I had a very good moment doing those paintings. And when I watch my sketchbook, I don't think about the lines too much. I think about the memory I had painting this scene. The same for that one. The end of the boat is completely off. It should be much more that way, and this shouldn't be that high. But it doesn't matter. I had a pleasant time. People were coming and to see me, and they were very nice. And the fishermen were very pleased that somebody was paying attention to their ship and trying to draw their ship. So it was a very nice day. And then I painted one of the views that I like the most, and a little sunset like that. It was a very quick sketch, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes to complete this sketch. I wanted to draw the reflections on the water, but the light was changing every minute. So this part is a bit messy, obviously, but I really like the way this part turned out. I like my greens. I think they look natural. I like my rocks. I like the color of the sun. So basically, I was happy when I was painting outside, and everything was fine. And I thought, well, I need to buy another sketchbook that is smaller so that I can paint even more outside. And this is what I did. I painted this mini A6 sketchbook, and I drew my water supplies, and then the Puy de Dôme, which is a volcano in my region. And then with the urban sketches, we visited a former prison. So this is not something you would do normally, but thanks to painting, you have access to places you would never visit otherwise. And I thought that it was really cool. And then I painted this view of the river that is not far from my house. And I really love the way it turned out. So I was really hyped up with painting outside. And ta-da-da, this happened. Oh, yeah. I know. This is an awful drawing. And this is the page, the double spread that caused my art block. So it was a Sunday afternoon. I was with my brother and my husband, and there was nothing to do. So we thought maybe we could take a walk in Vichy. And I told them, well, as we're going to Vichy today, I'd like to take my sketchbook and try to do a few paintings because the architecture is really interesting. And I knew I was interested in this building. And this is when things started going wrong, because I had a vision in my mind of this building, but when I was on spot, I couldn't really find a place where I had a good view of the building without being in the middle of the way. So first of all, I was fixed on the idea of painting this building, and I couldn't really find the spot I wanted to have a nice view of it. And the worst thing about drawing it is that I was conscious that my husband was a bit irritated that it was taking some time to draw, and I felt the pressure of him looking at me and waiting for me to finish my sketch. So instead of doing what I usually do, instead of using my pencil to draw my lines and of correcting things that are not great, I went directly with my fine liner, and it was horrible. You see this shape, it should have been that way and that way normally, but no, this is going downward. And then there is this arch, and those arches with the doors, every fucking line is completely wonky. And then there are those two columns with the big arch. They should be at the same level. But no, this one is much higher than this one. And this one, the blue detail on the stone is much bigger than here. So every line, every shape, every whatever you want is completely wrong in this painting. And the greens in the tree are awful. They are murky. This yellow here, it looks completely off. Nothing works in this painting. Maybe the only thing that works is the sky. But other than that, everything is a terrible mess. And I felt blocked because, first of all, I hate the result of this painting. It is the worst painting I have ever done in my life. and and on top of that, the experience of drawing it was a real pain because I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't find the place where I wanted to sit to draw, and I felt the pressure of going faster because I had the impression of annoying my brother and my husband because I was painting. And all this negative emotional state blocked me, and then it was over. I couldn't paint anymore. Because then when I would open my sketchbook, I would land on this double spread and think, oh my gosh, this is so awful. How can you draw after that? It's not possible. And then the start of the year, the beginning of the year arrived. We were in September. I had to prepare my new courses for this year, and then time goes by so quickly. So I just stopped painting because I lost the habit of painting because of this bad experience. And now we are in November, and I'm entering a period that is a bit stressful. And last year and the year before, I found a lot of relief in painting. That was really something that was relaxing, and it was almost like being in a meditative state. And I could release a lot of anxiety thanks to watercolor. And I thought, well, you've got to do watercolor again. You have to try. But I would always land on that double spread and say, oh no, I can't. This is so awful. Well, maybe tomorrow. And I was not starting. I wanted to, but I never did anything. And so I started painting again like 1 week ago or something like that. And the first piece of advice that I'm going to give you to start painting again, if you need to overcome an art block like me, is to paint something that is very different from the piece that created your art block. So let's say, like me, it was an urban sketching situation. Maybe try to paint some botanicals or something that is inspired from a fantasy world, or people, faces, portraits, objects. Paint something abstract, lines, squares, shapes, whatever. But do something completely different from the painting that created your art block. And one of the things that were preventing me from starting again to paint in my sketchbook is that I wanted this sketchbook to be a plein air painting sketchbook. And we're in November, so it's difficult to go outside because it's raining all the time and it's very cold. So I'm not really into the mood of going outside to paint. And I thought, well, maybe I should just paint whatever I feel like painting instead of being focused on painting outside with my sketchbook. So I'm going to paint something else. And this is when it clicked for me. So I decided to go around my house and try to find something I would like to draw. And I have some crystals and I love them. And I thought, well, maybe I could try to draw my crystals. And this is what I did. So I painted my sphere of silver obsidian and my amethysts that are in a cabinet. And I know this drawing is not perfect, but the things I wanted to draw the most turned out exactly as I wanted. I really love the effect of the sphere, the way the colors are different on the side here and here where there is the reflection on the stone. And it is a bit streaky with concentric shapes, but this is what it looks like in real life, so I was really happy with the way it turned out. I also like the way my amethyst turned out. So I have a kind of strange black amethyst from Uruguay, and this is what it looks like. And then I have this cactus amethyst with very small crystals. And I also love the way it turned out. So here there's a bit of cobalt teal that bled through the binding, but it was really, really nice. And so even if my bottle is not great and the background of the cabinet is not great either, I don't care because the things I wanted to paint turned out great. I loved my sphere of obsidian and I love my two crystals. And that's enough. And so you really have to find something that is very different from the thing that created your art block. But you also have, I think, to paint in different circumstances. To me, the last time I painted when it was a disaster was an outdoor session, a plein air painting session. So painting indoors was a completely different setup. And when I was painting at home, I was cozy in my office, and there was nobody home, so everything was quiet. I didn't feel any pressure, and I could start painting again. So that's an important piece of advice. Another piece of advice would be try things that you've always wanted to draw but never had the time to, or things that don't necessarily match with the atmosphere of your sketchbook, but you wanted to draw them anyway. And this is what I did here. I've already seen those rice maps that people make to make some kind of fantasy maps. The kind that you can find in The Lord of the Rings, for example. And I thought, well, this is okay. This is not a plein air sketchbook anymore with this page. So why not draw my rice map? And I just dropped some rice on my page and drew the shapes around it and made some little continents and islands, and that was it. And then I started to add some little details around the coastline and paint the sea. And these mountains here, these little trees, this crack with lava, some rivers, a cliff and herbs here. And then I was a bit stuck again because I was not confident anymore in my skills. And I just asked my brother, well, I have this map here. What should I add in here because it's too empty? And he told me, what about an oasis? And I thought, oh, yeah, okay, an oasis. That's easy to draw. And I thought, oh, it could be nice to have a little cactus with red rocks. Okay. And then I started to paint my desert, and he told me, well, you need a transition between your desert and the forest here. So you should add a mountain range along the river. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm going to add a mountain range. And then I just wanted to add a few more things. So here I didn't know what to draw. And I thought, oh, all this lava makes me think of Iceland. I'm going to draw some sheep. And that was it. My page was completed, and I was happy that I eventually finished it. And if you're not very inspired by little landmarks to draw, you could just try to find funny places, names for your map, like, or dramatic names like the mountain of desperation, the volcano of doom, the forest of lost souls, and blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. Or the valley of marshmallows, the river of hot chocolate, and whatever. It can be anything you want because it is a fantasy world. And in case you need some inspiration, you can always ask people around you. I'm sure they will have ideas. Then I painted another urban scene because I thought, well, I should try to paint some urban scenes again. So I painted from photos that I have saved from some holidays. And I always found that this building was interesting because the color was so strikingly different from the rest. And again, the perspective is completely off. This should be like that. But it doesn't really matter because what I was interested in was to recreate the color of this building. So even if the shape of the building is a bit off, it doesn't matter that much. And I was happy that I tried new things like painting vehicles because usually I never paint vehicles. I like the sky, I like the water, I like the colors on the buildings, the shadows, the light. And even if it's not a perfect urban sketch, I still find that there was some positive about it, and I was cozy at home on a Sunday morning, and I was just relaxing and doing my little painting. So the experience was very different from the terrible thing you saw here. And finally, last but not least, the main piece of advice I can give you if you want to start painting again with your watercolor is to swatch your colors. Swatch your colors on scraps of paper, try new mixes, try to make fusions with your paints, and maybe you will want to change the setup of your palette. This is what I did actually, because also I have a trip that I will do with my pupils in England in May, and I thought maybe it could be fun to ask them to do a travel sketchbook. It doesn't have to be an illustrated, painted sketchbook, but I think they should keep a travel journal. It could be a good thing to do. And I thought, well, if I want to do that and illustrate a few things, I want to carry some watercolor with me, but maybe not all my watercolor set because it's a bit heavy. And I tried to select only 12 colors, and by doing so I tried some mixes, and eventually I said, well, I'm not sure I want to get rid of my colors because I love them and it's too difficult to choose from them. But I also realized that one of my most favorite colors is not in my palette, not in my small palette that I like carrying with me. And so I thought, well, I need to swap this color. So initially I wanted to remove quinacridone violet and phthalo green, because I hardly ever use those colors in my palette. So that was my palette before. So the gold here was replaced already by Prada's pink, and that was my palette. And well, by trying my mixes, I realized that I could obtain really nice mixes with quinacridone violet and Prada's pink, but also between quinacridone violet and lavender. And so after that, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to keep my quinacridone violet. So maybe I should throw away my indanthrone blue. But indanthrone blue and quinacridone violet or quinacridone rose make beautiful violets. I was considering maybe using my dioxazine violet from Van Gogh instead of indanthrone blue. But I think indanthrone blue is more versatile because I have this very dark blue to create maybe night skies or beautiful violets, and a wide range of violets. So even if I don't really use this color that often, I thought, well, maybe I should keep it. And so I eventually ended up removing phthalo green from my palette and inverting the place of perylene green and indigo in the setup. And let me see, and I also exchanged the spot of indanthrone blue and cobalt teal. So this is not a major change, you're going to say, but when you look at the swatch, it gives a different impression. You have the impression you have new colors just because you moved the setup and changed one color. And when I look at those colors, I'm in love again. I made some circles and I allowed them to touch each other a little bit to allow some fusions in between the colors. And to me, fusions and the way the pigments move, that is something that is hypnotizing, and that's the magic of watercolor. And you can't imagine how this page makes me happy. When I look at this color, I found them so beautiful, and I find there is so much harmony in this watercolor setup. Look how beautiful it is to have this line that goes from bright yellows to muted purples and pinks, and this beautiful line of different shades of blue, and in the end this nice line of very natural colors. And so when I look at that, I'm in love again with watercolor. So if you want to start to paint again, maybe even before changing subjects like I did with this thing here, just swatch your colors, play with your colors, make something abstract. It doesn't have to be a figurative element that you paint, but just allow your pigments to move and play with your colors. And I assure you that if when you started watercolor you were thrilled and amazed by the way they react with water and the way they react with one another, if you start doing that again and you play with your colors and you swatch them, you're going to fall in love again with watercolor. And so this is really the page when I felt like, yes, I love it. I want to paint again. And so yesterday I did this beautiful double spread. I mean, it's not perfect, but I like it. I absolutely love those color mixes that I made with Prada's pink and the violets and the different pinks from my palette. So I hope this video is useful to you. Don't hesitate to leave some pieces of advice in the comments, and I hope to see you soon on my channel. Bye!